Hey, what's up, everybody? So today we're going to be talking about what happened or what didn't happen at the trade deadline here, and I'm excited to bring on Brian from Packers Coverage on Instagram. I'll leave a link to his Instagram down below, but he's got a solid following over there on Instagram. I bet a lot of you guys probably already follow him. So today we're going to talk about a lot of different things, starting with the trade deadline. But Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to be on the Best Packers YouTube channel in the game. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Excited to talk Packers. All right, so the trade deadline was yesterday. And there were a few big trades not involving the Packers. You know, you have the Jets trading off a ton of guys, and the Packers make the decision to not make any type of trade. So I feel like there's probably, differing opinions out there, as there typically is on pretty much any topic. But in your opinion, do you think the Packers should have been more aggressive at the trade deadline?
No, I didn't expect the Packers to be very active at the trade deadline, and I was happy that the predictable outcome kind of came to fruition. Um, first off, when it comes to the trade deadline, I think what a lot of fans want is to add an instant playmaker, someone who can kind of give like a Super Bowl boost, if you will, and hate to say the conventional take, but the Packers already did that when they traded for Micah Parsons, and you know if you look at the price tag of a guy like Sauce Gardner or Quinnen Williams, that's just not something that the Packers can afford to pay right now. I mean, it's when teams mortgage their future by trading away their future draft picks, I feel like it's not really a debate that at some point the bill does come due. And the Packers are a team that, and this is a philosophy I agree with, tend to like to build through the draft and acquire capital rather than give it away. So when you consider the fact that they're already down their next two first round picks, it would have been crazy reckless to, I don't know, trade another day two pick away or something like that, just to add a player who may or may not be able to contribute. That's something else that people I feel like kind of forget is that there's no guarantee that these guys you added the trade deadline are going to give you the boost that you want. A lot of the time, these guys are available for trade for a reason. I mean, NFL teams don't exactly like to part with, their best young talent or anything like that. So, I think it's worth considering maybe just, going and signing a guy like Asante Samuel Jr. That can give them, hopefully like a minor boost. But when it comes to mortgaging the future, I feel like the Packers have done plenty of that already. There's a great roster and already in Green Bay. And I think they just kind of have to make it work. I don't think there was a move in terms of making a trade that really would have made sense or been something that I would have agreed with. But I'm curious if I think you have a similar take to me, but I'm curious what you think of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I think the Micah Parsons trade. I mean, that was pretty much the big time trade, and I mean we've seen Brian Gutekunst and the Packers, as you talked about with draft capital. It's like the Packers don't like to part with those picks, and I think it's a wise decision to do. Typically not to. I of course liked it with the Micah Parsons deal because that was a totally different scenario. But over the years, most trade deadlines are pretty quiet for the Packers, and there have been years where it's like, okay, I would have liked if something would have happened. I mean, I feel like anytime there's a trade for the Packers and they get better in the immediate, it's like in the moment, it's like, this is awesome. But there is a reason the Packers are consistently one of the best teams in the NFL because they keep most of their draft picks. And especially now when you're paying Micah Parsons, the type of money that you're paying him, like $46.5 million per year, and you're already without those next 2 years, first round picks, to trade like a second for someone, that's just, whittling down those draft picks, which if you're trading a second for like a guy who you're going to have to pay a good amount of money either now or in the future, it just makes it that much tougher to build a good team around you. So it's like you need those picks so that you can have that, those cheap contracts with those guys. So I totally agree with you. And while, there are certain areas that could make sense, as you brought up Asante Samuel Jr., I think that one could definitely make sense, especially with him being a free agent. So you don't have to, give any type of draft capital. But it's not like there's an area where I'm like, oh no, there's no way the Packers can, go on a deep playoff run because of this position. Sure, they're, weaker areas, but I do think that they're, built pretty solidly right now. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that, you're the same opinion you sort of have there.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing. We've been on the right side of those trades with guys like Preston Smith or Haha Clinton Dix, a few years back, where it's a veteran player who kind of has that pedigree in his name, and the team deals him away for cheap. And I don't know about you, but when we traded those guys away, I was like, oh, like what's going on here? Why are we trading away like a solid starter on a team? No, if a veteran is available at the trade deadline, it's usually because the team knows that, there's been a dip in his play. And when it comes to young players, it's one of two things. They either command a huge haul, which the Packers, simply could not go out and acquire a guy like Sauce Gardner right now, even if they wanted to, or someone like Michael Mayer. It's a name that was thrown out a lot. I don't think the Raiders, even if they're a bad team that can't compete this year, why would they trade away their young talent? It just doesn't make sense. So, in addition to, me being someone a little bit more conservative with the draft capital, putting my GM hat on, not wanting to pay that price, I'm not sure there would have been a deal that made sense to begin with.
Yeah, I'm totally in the same line with you. And I didn't think anything was going to happen, but at the same time, it's like part of me did wonder, just because the Packers clearly see this year as like a go all in type year when you see the trade for Parsons. Because years past, all the trades were trading away players, trading away Rodgers, getting draft capital, trading away Devontae, getting draft capital, which did help build what the Packers have right now. And so that big move for Micah was like the all in move. And so I was curious, like maybe Gutekunst will be like hyper aggressive because he sort of feels maybe. I didn't think it would happen. But at the same time, I was sort of like, this is a different type of year. But I think what they did, not doing anything, makes perfect sense, because, I mean, you can't just, the Packers aren't the team that are going to give it all right now so that they can win right now and then, struggle in the future. So I think that was definitely the right decision there. All right. So now looking back at this Panthers game, which was, not pretty, not a pretty game. First off, how much did this game concern you?
I'm going to be honest. My reaction to the Packers losing that game was I laughed because, like most people, I didn't think it was possible they would lose, but it really was just like a shocking defeat. But even in spite of that, I'm not really worried at all. And my take here might be a knee-jerk reaction to 2024, the 2024 Packers team. For those who don't remember, the most common criticism of the Packers in 2024 was, yeah, they have a good record, they're a solid team, but they don't beat, the big teams, the contenders. And, as much as that annoyed me as a fan of the team, it was proven to be true. They lost twice to Minnesota, to Detroit, and to Philadelphia. So the reason, to kind of bring this full circle, that this loss, look, it's I'm not happy about it. The playoff seeding implications, and it's just a bad look in general to have a inferior team come into Lambeau and kind of eat your lunch. But this Packers team in 2025, we know what their ceiling is. They beat down Detroit. I don't care that it was week one. That's a very good win for the Packers. They dominated the Steelers in the second half. So they've demonstrated the ceiling that they didn't have last year. And come playoff time, that's what really matters. So, how they look against the Eagles means a lot more to me. And I mean, the NFL is a league where, look, any given week, any team can beat anyone. That's what makes it a great league. And also want to kind of add in, the Panthers are 5-4. I feel like we kind of have this sentiment like we just lost to the worst team in the NFL. But yeah, it's kind of, summarize, make my point. I'm not going to get hung up on one loss, even as bad as it is, because, that's just going to happen on a weekly basis. And what I learned from last year is that all that really matters is, are you able to get hot, and what is the ceiling of the team? Can you beat anyone on any given week? And, even if we're finding out the Packers can, lose to anyone, which is kind of weird at the same time, I think they can beat anyone as well. So I'm definitely not hitting the panic button. How about you?
Yeah, I feel like with this one, it's like one of those games where I'm watching it and I'm like, this is looking really bad. Like, it's one of those weird games where it's just like things aren't going right, but I wasn't sitting there like, oh no, like this is the end of the world. It was just like, it's just like a weird game, like a weird day. The Packers, I mean, they outgained the Panthers by like close to 100 yards. They get to the red zone 5 times, and then there's just like so many just mistakes, like fumbles, false starts, Jordan Morgan getting beat. And sure, you don't want to see that. And if that were to continue every week, then it's like, okay, then obviously that's a problem. But it just felt like one of those games where, like, the Packers, I mean, they didn't come out. I mean, they played some, I mean, defensively, I thought it was good enough. When you allow 16 points, it's like, okay, that should
Oh, yeah.
typically be fine. So I don't really have that much of a problem with the defense. The run defense wasn't quite as good as usual. But still, when you hold like Bryce Young to like about 100 yards, and I was looking today, he had the worst passer rating of the entire week. So, I mean, he made a few nice throws that got them, a few first downs. But for the most part, it's like you shut him down. Defensively, you're good. Now, offensively, red zone, terrible. If that had been going on all season long, then I'd be like, okay, this isn't looking good. But they were a top 10 red zone team before this game. They're like 7th and like 70% of the time converting. So it's just a weird game. When you start off with a fumble, I mean, that changes everything. And that's totally swings the momentum, because if they score there, I think that's a totally different game. Just like
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Eagles game, playoffs last year, Keyshawn fumbles it. It's just like when that's how you start the game, it's just like immediately it makes it tough to, you have to play a lot better moving on from that point. So I tend to agree with sort of how you see it. And as you said as well, this game against the Eagles, like how they play here is how I'm going to really, judge this team. If they come out and play similarly against the Eagles, then it's like, okay, I'm a little more concerned. Not that it's the end of the world, but it's like, okay. But if they come in and beat the Eagles, and it's like, okay, we're going to totally forget that this game ever happened. And I mean, there's so many games. I mean, I was looking back at the when the Packers won the Super Bowl last, and they lost 6 games. So it's like any of those 6 games, there's probably a reason they lost, and you can go, oh no, there's no way they're gonna win a Super Bowl. The next year they go 15-1, lose the first playoff game. So it's like at the end of the day, can you get hot in the playoffs? And do you have the necessary pieces to be able to pull it off? Which I feel like the Packers do. And on that same, unless you have something on that.
I was just gonna say I love playing the comparisons to 2010 game. That's our favorite game as Packers fans. But
yeah,
no, you're definitely
all
right
those
on
things
that.
are crazy. I mean, like the 27, and I think there was one I saw. Maybe you saw it, like about was it Jermichael Finley who got injured?
Yeah, 16-13 loss, second loss of the season to like a worse team at Lambeau. It was crazy
It's
parallels.
weird. It's weird how much things are like aligned to that season.
Yeah.
But yeah. So on that sort of same regarding this Panthers game, there's a lot of concern in my comments about Matt LaFleur, and I made a video on it about personally why I'm not. I like basically I don't think it's the end of the world here with Matt LaFleur. I still think he's a very good coach, but just sort of getting sort of your assessment here. Like, how much blame do you think Matt LaFleur deserves?
Man, isn't this the $1 million question right now? I think he deserves a lot of blame. I think 2 things. It's really easy to, be a couch GM or coach or whatever you want to call it and say, oh, that was the wrong call, or why did he do this? Why did he do that? As you mentioned, the Savion Williams fumble, that's straight up not on Matt LaFleur. That changes the game. But it does feel like right now he just isn't that same play caller he is when we brought him in terms of creativity. But also, it's like he's just chooses the weirdest times to be aggressive and the weirdest times to be conservative. I mean, I'm sitting on my couch in the first half saying, just let Jordan Love throw the ball. You're paying the guy $50 million. It still feels like just a little bit they don't trust him. But, to answer your question, he deserves a lot of blame. But at the same time, I think we should give him a chance to kind of get things right. I can tell you right now, he's not going anywhere. There's definitely some chance to, kind of, chase him out of Green Bay. I got news for you. We're 5-2-1 leading the division. It's literally just not going to happen. But he's getting a lot of valid criticism, and he's just got to be better. I mean, he's got, like I've kind of already alluded to, he's got a very, complete roster, and there's no denying there's room for improvement, but at the same time, patience is kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd say I feel like I'm a little less blame on Matt LaFleur in my mind, just because it's like, of course, I think that he deserves some blame, like, especially like when your players aren't out there, like when you're making mistakes and fumbles, there's an aspect of, the coach, like, are you getting your team fully ready to play and ready to go out there? So I definitely think he deserves, some blame. I guess in my mind, like in that one, the fact that they're moving the ball pretty well, the fact that they, got to the red zone so many times now, sure, you would like to see them convert better, but, so many of those, the false start, the, Jordan Morgan, there are multiple times where he just gets beat so fast. And it's like, on those plays, I'm like, I don't know how much more, Matt LaFleur can do though there in those type situations. But I totally, see where you're coming from. And I do think, it's like you'd like to see more consistency from the offense. So it's like, that's where I do think he deserves some of that, where he's the play caller, and you like to see them be more consistent and get off to faster starts, especially offensively. And so sort of along those lines, as you were discussing, I do feel like, it's like, I think with the Micah Parsons trade, it's like, in my mind to start, I really thought the Packers would be able to dominate these, like the Browns. They had a good defense, but I thought they would win that game. The Panthers, if you would have said before the season, after Micah got traded, that we lost those, I'd be like, well, how in the, like, what's going on if we lose those 2 games? So it definitely can be better. I do just think, looking around the entire league, it's like every team has had some issue. Like, no one's undefeated. The Steelers just beat the Colts, who the Packers just beat the Steelers. So it's like so much can shift during a season. And so I would say, I mean, looking at this game, my biggest concern is the fact that Tucker Kraft is down. That's more concerning than the fact that they lost that game, just because Kraft is such a big part of this offense and his yards after the catch. So I'm curious to see, what Matt LaFleur does, how the Packers sort of try to fill that hole. That's my biggest concern right now.
Look, there's no sugarcoating the loss of Tucker Kraft. I mean, it's undeniable I mean, he's probably right now our wide receiver one, even though he plays tight end, if you will. And he's just as effective in the as a run blocker. He's fighting every snap out there. I mean, there's a reason that he's won over the hearts of every Packers fan. But as as awful as that injury is, I've kind of had this realization, and we can tie this back to 2010. That was a team that had a lot of injuries, but a team that is built to win the Super Bowl has to be able to overcome one singular loss. Maybe unless it's like a star quarterback or something like that. Like, you lose Aaron Rodgers in his prime. Yeah, that's a loss that it's like there's no overcoming it. But as great as Tucker Kraft is, I would argue the third most valuable Packer on the team. It's if the team can't overcome that loss, it's just not a team of destiny. Maybe that's like a cliche. Maybe that's an overgeneralization. But, you drafted Luke Musgrave in round 2. Do I think Luke Musgrave is going to be able to fill the shoes of Tucker Kraft? No, but this is his moment to step up, and the team, has to put him in a position to succeed and have that faith in him to kind of step up. I think tight end was the position a lot of people would have liked the Packers to have, kind of gone out and got someone, but I'm definitely expecting and hoping him to step up, and as awful as it is losing Tucker Kraft, it's just like the team cannot let it be the thing that derails the entire season, even if the impact he has on the team is undeniable.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these injuries. It's like so many teams have these, and if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you have to be able to overcome those injuries, and you'd rather it obviously not be some of your most productive players, but the Packers do have a ton of weapons, so I think it's just going to come down to those other guys sort of carrying more of that load. And so looking at this Packers team, just sort of where they are right now, I'm just curious, what is your confidence level of this Packers team being able to win a Super Bowl?
So prior to the Micah Parsons trade, I was kind of like, I don't know if we really have it. And then that trade really boosted my confidence. And then after week 1, I was like, whoa, this is the best team in the NFL. It's kind of come back down a little since week 1. I'd say it's about right where it was right when we traded Micah Parsons. Like adding a player like that, a true superstar, arguably the best defender in the league, that was a move that put us into the clear, contenders tier. And the reason I still think the Packers have as good a chance of anyone is because there is no clear front runner right now. The Packers are a team that obviously has their flaws, that are, you could easily come up with a list of reasons of why, you might want to bet against the Packers to win the Super Bowl, whether it's their inconsistency or, the offense has kind of been lacking. But there's no one team who is waiting to kind of expose this team in the playoffs. Like, I think a good comparison would be the 2019 Packers team. That was a 13-3 team, looks great on paper, but I think we all kind of had this sense of dread incoming when we had to play the 49ers. That was a clear front runner, just, perfectly built Super Bowl team. And, they exposed the Packers in the NFC Championship. But the Packers don't have a team like that waiting for them this year, in my opinion. So my hopes are high. I think the Packers are in the mix. This is a year that's really up for grabs. And I think the Packers have as good a chance as anyone in the NFC. It's all going to come down to what are they looking like come playoff time? Can we get another Toyotathon Jordan Love type of December run, Lambeau in December? I mean, obviously my confidence goes up if they're able to secure that home field advantage. But at this point in time, I still feel like on any given week, we can beat anyone. So being able to say that as a fan makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say I'm still confident in what this team could do. I do think like right when the Micah Parsons trade happened, I was like insanely confident. And then especially after the first 2 weeks, I'm like, man, maybe like can the Packers go undefeated? And now in hindsight, obviously that was a little too excited too quickly there. But I still think like when you look at the teams around the NFL, like the teams that you think can or have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, it's like you have to have the quarterback, which I think the Packers totally have in Jordan Love. He's played much better football this year than even last year. Not that he's been perfect, but I think he's proven to be, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So I feel like I have a lot of confidence in Jordan Love. And then just to have Micah Parsons, we saw it in a couple games where he sort of shut things down against the Cardinals, getting a couple sacks at the end. Just to have him out there, the Packers pass rush is still dominant. And Lucas Van Ness has been out, and he had been playing really well. And so once he comes back, I think that they'll be even better there. So I think just to have Love on offense, Micah Parsons on defense, it makes the Packers, regardless, one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL just because of that ability in close games to shut things down. Now, it didn't happen against the Panthers, but I still think, against some of the best teams, the Packers have two of the best players, offensively and defensively. So I'd say I'm a little less confident than like right when the Parsons trade happened. But at the same time, I do think the Packers like have all of what they could potentially need to go on a run. And as there's not a team out there that I'm like, okay, they're definitely 100% better than the Packers. I think that they definitely have a chance to go on a run in the playoffs. And without Parsons, sort of like you, I thought they could. Like if Jordan Love can get hot come playoff time, sure, they could have done it without Micah Parsons. I do think having Parsons gives you a little bit more flexibility where Love doesn't have to be perfect to go on a run, even though he needs to play really well. So that's sort of my thoughts there.
Yeah. So my question to you would be, we've seen 9 weeks of football now. Who's the team who you're like, oh, I don't want to play them, or that's the team who might kind of get in the way of the Packers reaching the Super Bowl? Like, is there kind of someone you're hoping we don't play right now come playoff time?
That's a good question. Honestly, NFC wise, like I feel like no. I feel like I feel like some of those AFC quarterbacks, could scare me a little. If you had to play, Mahomes or Josh Allen, I think those, in my mind, those guys are scarier than facing Jalen Hurts. Not that Jalen Hurts isn't a good quarterback and he's played really well this year. Just in my mind, it's like I'm more concerned about those guys. But I mean, the Eagles are a good team and they can get things going. I mean, they ran the ball really effectively recently. And so, I mean, they're still a really good team. But I don't feel like there's a team that's like in the NFC side that I'm like, there's no chance, or it's not going to happen. How about you?
I totally agree with that, and that's kind of a reason for the optimism I expressed. But I will say it's a little scary, the quantity of teams who it feels like could make noise. I mean, you got the Seahawks getting hot. You got obviously Tampa Bay. I feel like the Rams, no one's really talking about them for how good they've looked. So while it feels great to say like, no, there is not a team who I would say is like definitively better than the Packers. If everything goes how it should, the Packers will lose. There's not a team that kind of fills that description, but there is a lot of teams lurking. I mean, even within our own division. I mean, I'm not, history doesn't make me scared of the Bears, but 5-3, new head coach, like, I mean, that's going to be certainly an interesting game. So, yeah, I think we're in for one of those years, man. Kind of like 2021, where it was like the Rams and Bengals in the Super Bowl, just something random, just two new fresh teams kind of emerged. I'm really hoping, and I think that's kind of what we're trending towards this year. So, I'm really excited to see how things shake out. I mean, it's I think the hardest year to predict in a while, which is really fun as a fan of the NFL in general.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be a fun one to see how things end. And that's a thing where it's like things can shift so drastically from like where we are right now to a month from now. So, playoff time, November, December, hopefully Jordan Love can get hot once again, which I feel like he will for whatever reason. It just seems, I mean, it happened the past 2 years and hopefully that can carry on into February. Because I do feel like, it's time for the Packers to get back to a Super Bowl. It's been too long having to, wait to get back there. But,
we've been waiting a long time for a fan base that's spoiled. It's been a while, man.
It has been a while. Thankfully, we're always competitive. There's always like at least some kind of chance, and that's what the Packers do so well, like always staying in the mix. So thankfully, some of those teams out there who go like 5 years without playoffs, like I can't imagine, having to go through that,
Oh yeah, that would no. No thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. And once again, he's Packers Coverage on Instagram, and I'll leave his Instagram below if you haven't followed him already to go check out all his stuff there, posting all the news, all that kind of stuff. But Brian, appreciate you coming on.
It was a pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me on.